Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the country, in the world, and whether you're watching this on replay, or watching it live. We are live, and my guest today will be live with me as well. And I'll prepare him that we are going to put him on in a moment. And in fact, I think we'll probably start off with him live because we're going to show some slides. And when we do that, we're actually going to have him talking as well. So I'll introduce him now. Hello, Richard. This is Richard Hatherall from Embarcadero. How are you doing?
Yeah,
we're back again. This seems familiar. I don't know whether I don't know. It feels like we've done this before.
Yeah.
So we'll say hi to a few people, because if I don't say hi to people, some people get really cross that we say hi to anybody, and then other people get really cross we don't say hi. So I'm hung if I do, and I'm hung if I don't. So there you go. Well, Francis is so far every time consistently. Francis Moore, who is based in the UK, and I know Francis, he's saying good evening from a cold and wet Wilton in the UK. Is it raining where you are? That's a stupid question. You're in the UK. Of course it's raining. Is it raining?
Yeah, very excited by my SDK apparently. So yes, I'm excited to be showing it. So
yeah, I was just wondering if it was raining where you were as well. But yeah, we can talk about important things like the SDK if you like.
I mean, if you want to talk about the weather, it's probably raining.
It's just too cliche. Three British people in the conversation loop, and we'll just talk about the weather. Yeah, I'm glad. Very excited by Richard's SDK. Actually, we had a little meeting before this about something else in connection with that, and it does seem that people have kind of latched on to what we're doing. We did do one before, not a hot dog one, which we will refer to later, and it did, although it was a joke, it was trying to make a point about a very important service from Amazon, which is recognition, which I think personally is one of their most exciting ones. And that's the AI-based recognition thing, which you worked very hard to get working. I know that, so it's good. Jason Chapman, I'm sure you know Jason.
Hello, Jason.
Yeah, from the years ago. He says he's going to have to go and run to the Christmas do. Poor excuse, Jason. We're taking notes, and you've got a black mark against your name now. He says it's crisp and cold in Kent, no rain. My mother comes from Kent. She was born in Belvedere in Kent, so there you go. Happy days. Okay, well, look, how many we got joining? Oh, the number's steadily ticking up. Hello from Einstein. Of course, Einstein is here. Of course. Hello, Ian from Nance. He doesn't want to say hello to Richard, and I don't blame him. Salut, my friend. Hope you're doing well in France. Luis Santos, hello. The winter arrived in Portugal. Isn't that the wrong way? Oh, of course, yes, of course. It's in Europe. I'm thinking of Brazil. I'm thinking it's surely not winter in Brazil, but yeah, it's Portugal.
You're mixing up places that speak Portuguese, right?
Yeah. What happened was I had a month where I just only seemed to be in places that spoke Portuguese, and it gets a bit, your head starts to spin after a while. Plus, I'm a bit confused 90% of the time anyway. The winter arrived in Portugal, but only a few raindrops. Oh, Lewis, I mean, really, come on. It's just, it's not good enough. Even in Dallas, I have to say, it is raining today. My daughter and her husband went out. They work for Amazon, and she had to go and borrow a rain jacket from me because she doesn't own one, because she lives in Texas, and you don't normally need a jacket.
Whereas you, being a Brit, even though you don't need them, have got a covered.
Of course, I have them. Yes, exactly. Yes, yeah. I'm not crazy. I know how it works. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Terry says hello from San Carlos in California, and it's raining again. I'm sorry about that. Although, to be fair, in California, the more rain you can get, the better, because there's been some awful wildfires down there and things like that as well, or across there, I should say, on the West Coast. But yeah, nasty stuff. Okay, well, look, we're going to start looking at the slides, which means I'm going to play around with my slides for a moment, and then probably get lost because I'm probably going to have to set up my third screen at some point so that I can see what's happening. But let me just share my screen. Richard and I should pop down to here so we can still be seen, because the slides are important, but I feel like we're important too, Richard, don't you? Yeah. So the reason is that Richard and I are going to talk about the services as we go along, and then afterwards we are going to have a demo. So the first part will be just describing what AWS do, and then going into each of the services very, very briefly, and then after that we're going to go a bit further into it. Now, I can't see the broadcast screen, so if people ask questions, you'll have to let me know. I can't see what is going on at all. Okay, so for those that have just joined, today's webinar is about AWS. My name, if you don't know it, and you really should do by now, is Ian Barker, and I'm the Embarcadero developer advocate. I say this every webinar. It's getting boring. If you want to email me, please do, about any subject to do with RAD Studio, C++ Builder, Delphi, that kind of Object Pascal kind of thing. I will respond, and it shocks people sometimes. I don't know why, but you can email me at ian.barker@embarcadero.com. And if you want to read something about me, go to about.me/Ian Barker. So talking about Amazon's services, there's quite a lot of them. I think that's fair to say, isn't it, Richard?
Yeah, I think you can count it in the hundreds.
Yeah, there's a lot. And these ones are the ones that we're kind of covering very, very briefly today. But Richard's demo is going to go into a bit of depth on a few of these. But if we just go down the list, we'll just briefly talk about each one. So there is Amazon Cognito. And this is how you can integrate user authentication and authorization into your applications with Amazon's identity management service, Amazon Cognito. What can you just tell me what the user pools, identity pools, and sync? I'm not quite sure about it.
So there's three parts to Cognito. They're really three services in their own right, you start off typically with user pools. So user pools is where you want a directory of users and to sign into your application to be able to, do whatever you want them to enable them to do in your application. And the user pools takes care of all of the normal user management kind of facilities. And then at some point, when you are signed in as a user, you're going to want to get some credentials to be able to access other Amazon Web Services, and that's where identity pools come in, where you set up a federated identity pool thing.
You say federation? I just want to say.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's
not the Federation of Planets. Yes, I get it.
Yeah.
I've thrown you off now, haven't I? You see, I'm terrible.
Yeah. So sometimes it's difficult because obviously there's like a lot of concepts going on in cloud services, but the idea is that with a federated identity pool, you are trying to get identities from somewhere else and exchange their identity, make sure they are who they are, you exchange their identity for a set of credentials that allows them to do what they want. So once you've signed in through your user pool, you can then have that automatically exchange your identity details for a set of AWS credentials. And it's not just limited to Amazon's user pools, though. You can also federate in identities from the major identity providers, whether it's Facebook or Google or whoever has an open ID.
So like one of those things where it says log in with Facebook, log in with Google, log in with Microsoft, and then
and if you tick the boxes, it's as simple as that. It's you tick to enable them. You paste in some magic values that you get from your third-party identity provider, and it will magically put those buttons on your user interface for you. So
cool, interesting stuff. So the next one in the list is Amazon's simple storage service. I've chosen a representative graphic. Throughout this presentation, you're going to find a few representative graphics and a few that maybe don't necessarily directly represent the service. You okay? Do you need a drink of water?
Yeah,
or vodka or whatever. I'm assuming it's water, but
yeah.
So I wouldn't blame you.
So simple storage service is probably Amazon's most famous service.
So just because S3 buckets, right?
S3 is just so useful in almost every scenario. There's in almost every application we have a need to store some data of some kind, some unstructured data. We just say, okay, I need to store this image, this video, whatever, and I need it to be accessible anywhere in the world. So S3 is that service. It's highly available, very resilient. It's.
I think it's the main one that people know as well. I think that, and you've got to get it right, because sometimes you read about data breaches and it's where someone has actually not used the security that Amazon set up, and they just open the S3 buckets to the world, or they have access exposed, and then surprise, surprise, their data's exposed.
Thankfully, they did actually clean that up.
Oh, really?
As in, like, well, I think
they had to. To be fair,
it was the default a few years ago. They changed the default, creation of a bucket to basically say that it was. So when you go through the normal wizard through their web console, it would make effectively private access buckets by default. So
right, yeah. Because that was where people were going wrong. They were making public ones, and it wasn't necessarily that it was the default. It's just that people didn't understand what they were doing, and they were going, "Oh, it'll be fine. Anybody can access this," and anybody did, and it was quite a lot of data was exposed via S3. Amazon are pretty responsive. It's the last thing they want is people having their data breached, of course, and okay. And the next one is the SNS service. With my little illustrative graphic there of a simple notification service shouting at someone. But I suppose that's kind of what a push notification is. It's really, we're all familiar with them. These little alerts that come up to say, hey, your payment to your bank has just posted, or Jim spoke about you on Facebook, or there are more pictures of Richard Hatherall on the beach in Instagram, those kind of things. And that's kind of, you can use it. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but Richard, but that's what the SNS can do. Is that right?
So yeah,
so that's part of that mechanism. Yeah.
So SNS is all about timely notifications. So wherever that is, whether it's on your mobile phone, like things popping up on your phone to say, hey, this app has got something you need to pay attention to in it, or whether it's you can actually use it as well for push notifications over to web services. So you can actually say, when this thing happens, send this HTTP request, this payload to this HTTP REST endpoint. And then on that REST endpoint, you can verify that it's actually come from Amazon using a signed payload. And once you do that, you can say, okay, I need to now act upon that. So it's more than just mobile app notifications, and it's anything that's a timely notification. SMS messaging as well can be done through, like one-way SMS messaging. You want to ping someone to say, hey, here's a one-time password, that kind of thing you can do.
And that's the one-time password is probably one of the uses that I think people will find the most useful. I just want to point out as well, because we haven't done it yet, but if people look up there, and I'm now pointing at it correctly because I can tell in the preview, the reason we're talking about this is you are, of course, from Apercept. Oh, and someone scanned the code already. There you go. Your company is Apercept. And the reason you're talking about is, A, you're an expert in these services because you've had to be, but more importantly, because there's an SDK and actually some components as well, and more on that later, that allow people to use these kind of services in their Delphi and C++ builder, I think, apps. Or was there a question about that? I can't remember whether we said before whether it works.
So yeah, so I don't. It's not necessarily a target for me for C++ builder. I am.
Yeah.
I am a Delphi guy. It's not that I don't want to support C++, but that was my main focus when I built the SDK.
Yeah. Well, as far as we know, it works absolutely fine in C++ builder. And in fact, if you are a C++,
the one thing is, I don't think I don't ship. I think you would need the HPP files, which I don't ship in the SDK. So I haven't gone through testing with C++ builder, and it probably would work if I shipped the HPP files. If there's any interest in doing that with people, ping me, let me know, and I'll take a look at it. It's not my prime focus, but
there's a couple of MVPs we can ask as well that are C++ people. Paul McGee, I don't know if you're on at all. Let me just—he's not mentioned in the chat, but if Paul McGee's on, Paul McGee's into C++ builder in a big way, and he's also a Delphi guy, so he would probably be a good person to come back to us on that. Okay, so that's SNS, and we've just—what was that? Just pinged on my screen. Something just bipped. I'm not quite sure what it was, but anyway, it's not me. Oh, is it a message here? Hang on. No, I don't know why we got a ping there. Never mind. We'll ignore that for now, shall we? Sometimes this broadcast platform goes bing, and I'm not 100% sure why it did that, but we'll worry about it later. So SQS, Amazon's simple queue service, decouple and scale applications using Amazon's simple queue service. So I don't quite understand what this does. I've not used this myself. Can you kind of give us the 1 minute, elevator pitch on what that is?
So simple queue service is in fact, it was actually Amazon's first web service they created. It's that fundamentally important for cloud computing that this was the first thing they built. So it's really simple, that it's a service that takes payloads of data and sticks them in a queue, and you can have things listen to a queue and process the data coming off of the queue. So it's just, if you need to decouple a system, if you're making a distributed system architecture with different servers doing different things, different microservices and things interacting together, you need some way to pass messages around these services, and queues are a typical way to do that. Queues or notifications, or a combination of the two, basically. So
right, so it's kind of like notification as well, I think, for the app.
Yes, but
it is now it's your turn kind of thing.
Yeah. So notifications typically sort of like broadcast to many receivers, whereas simple queue, it's a whoever consumes the next one off the queue, that item doesn't go to another until it needs to. There are some caveats around message delivery, but I won't go into those here. But yeah, it's
okay. Well, we'll go into the more easy bit then, and that is the Amazon Simple Email Service. And I've represented that with a love letter from a secret admirer in the form of a ransom note. Thank you, AI, for coming up with that. The simple email. So basically is what it says. It sends emails through Amazon's reliable, scalable email service, Amazon SES. Do we need to go any further into that, or I think it's pretty straightforward?
It's pretty straightforward what that does. You can also receive emails through it as well. There are mechanisms to do that, but and you can also template emails and things, but it's emails.
Yeah,
it's essential for many services, but yeah, it's email.
Yeah, and then the next one is Amazon Polly. Oh, I see what I've done there. I've got the wrong graphic. Hang on, let me just get rid of that graphic. Bang! Oh, I got rid of the Polly graphic. There you go. So Amazon Polly is not a parrot. It is converting text into lifelike speech using Amazon's text-to-speech TTS service, Amazon Polly. It's not Polly the parrot.
I can't believe you're a British guy who has just shot a parrot on this slide, and you haven't pulled the Monty Python gag.
It's not dead. It's just resting.
Yeah,
I totally should have said that. As I should have put rest on there or something like that. Yeah, exactly. I thought it was good enough for the Polly graphic, but you went one step further. It's like the Instagram, which I was so cross that I never thought about. That was Dave Nottage. I hate you, Dave, for coming up there after I'd done the webinar. Yeah, so Amazon Polly, great service. I've actually used this in one of my webinars before, where I got the Star computer or Starship computer to talk, and actually it's one of the first services of yours that I played with, one of the first SDKs, to make it speak, and it did a good job. It just literally spoke, and it was straightforward. You just say this and choose a voice, and off it goes. So pretty clever. Hello, Adele in Agadir, Morocco. Very, very beautiful place. I've been to Agadir, I think. I've been to a lot of places, but there you go. So Amazon Polly, yeah, very simple, and your SDK makes it even simpler. If you want your program to speak in a lifelike voice, either for accessibility or you just want it to announce things, let's say it's a service and it's running on a maybe a headless computer or something like that is sitting in a reception, and you want it to announce people as they arrive, so they scan their ID badge, or you want to say something like, "The factory is closing in 1 minute," that kind of thing, then you could get the voice to do that. You could also do platform announcements for trains. I believe that kind of service is already used in Amsterdam Schiphol Airport, where all of the announcements for the airport are driven by Delphi app. Now, I don't know whether they use Amazon Polly, but maybe we should talk about what they do. We'll find out from them, because I know those guys, and ask them to explain what they do use for it. But that's what it does. Text to speech, easy stuff to do.
Yeah.
And this is a little bit of an insider back reference to a previous application that we wrote. We wrote "not a hot dog," and that's not a hot dog. He's looking very happy. But we used that service, which is Amazon Recognition. And this is like, to me, this is the Uber service of all. And I mean like the top service that they have, because it does some really magical stuff. If you want your app to do something where people go, "Oh my God, how did you do that?" Amazon Recognition is probably the kind of service you should be looking at, because it does some really mind-bendingly good things. We talked about it before, didn't we, in our previous webinar? Hot dog, where you can detect faces, you can detect objects, you can detect text. Same as another service we can talk about in a second. Unsafe content. So if you're using it for not a hot dog and you want to go, "No, that's not a hot dog," or really for content moderation, where you don't want adult, shall we say, images to be shown, then Amazon Recognition can flag and say, "This looks like there's nudity," or something like that in it. And it could do a lot of things. And you also said video, the other one, the classic one, which actually who was it who was talking about? Oh yes, Serge Pilko has raised the question of how much would it cost for him to write an app to scan hundreds of hours of video so that he could detect Sandra Bullock. We're going to send you because there is Amazon recognition allows you. It's got a face recognition database of celebrities. Is that right? So
Yep.
Yeah, and you can scan video and flag all the celebrities, or flag them at an image. Let's say you have a security camera, and your example was at the Oscars or something like that recently. I forget what it was, and it scans the crowd, and you could pick out the celebrities. It could automatically flag the celebrities. You also use the example of it being used at the royal wedding, where the news reporters wanted to be able to know, who's that guy over there? Looks important. And he comes back and says it's the first Duke of Bedford or something like that, who's suddenly raised from the dead, because it's like this 37th Duke of Bedford now. But yeah, the general gist. You can recognise celebrities. You can recognise faces if you train it with a training set and stuff like that. It is an incredible service, and your SDK makes it super easy as well. So, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. So that's Amazon Recognition, my favorite service, I think. The other one is Amazon Textract, that analyzes and detects and extracts text from the image. And in fact, that image there, which you would say, well, that's kind of weird. There's a lot of ribbon stuff in it. In theory, it could extract the text from there, and you could also then use the other option to translate that text and understand what it says, if it's not your native language. So quite astounding stuff, really. The other one is Amazon Transcribe, which recognizes and transcribes text from audio files and streams. Literally what that person is doing there. Unfortunately, you could make her redundant. So she should be very worried about losing her job, because Amazon Transcribe can do it. Now, I have a little comment to make about this. We used a service on one of our webinars to transcribe one of our webinars from, I think it was the coding boot camp or something like that last year or this year. It's all blended into one. And we transcribed a webinar, and the transcription service that we use, which is AI based, didn't do a very good job of it, and started making some random claims like Windows 7 didn't have a 64-bit version, which was not true. And the other thing it said was that Delphi XE was 30 years old, which also wasn't true. The reason for that was twofold. First of all, I edit that blog. So it is my, I know someone kindly said it's not your fault, Ian, but actually the buck stops with me. I'm the public face of Embarcadero for many of these things, and I take responsibility. We messed up. The person that put the transcription up is not technical, and we didn't get someone to check the transcription was technically accurate, and also that the guest was saying things that were transcribed correctly. It looked like it was correct, but actually when he said Delphi, the transcription automatically replaced the word Delphi in this guy's accent to Delphi XE. So what he actually said was Delphi has been around for 30 years. But what it heard was Delphi XE has been around for 30 years. So it's not an excuse. We should have checked it. But my word, I got a lot of emails about that. So transcription is great and it works, but use with caution, because for some reason, people like myself, it mostly understands my accent. And I'm sure Richard's accent as well. But I can tell you the Amazon devices, and I'm not going to say its name because there's one in this room, but it sounds like Perplexer. You know the name I mean.
I'm holding back.
Yeah, exactly. And mobile phones, because my cell phones are American and I have a British accent, if I wanted to call my daughter, I actually have to say, call my daughter. Because if I say door, because if I say it in my normal British accent, the American thing doesn't understand me and tries to call my doctor, which is it's a little bit worrying. But transcription, these things, but use them with caution. But it does a good job. And the other one, now this is one of my funny slides, is transcribing text from images to and from English across a breadth of supported languages using Amazon's deep learning powered translation service. So one hopes it would not say, "Welcome, tourist, we speak English," but would actually say, "Welcome, and we speak English." So, I mean, have you had much experience of this translation option, Richard, or?
Not in not that I've had any terrible feedback like that. I did not on the a funny side note, I guess, would be I did work on a program once where
you've seen the comment about the drones as well, have you? Because whatever.
Well, we used to do automatic translation on a platform I used to work on using Amazon Translate, and that was great. But we did once get into a minor problem, which was not by Amazon Translate, but it was actually a bug on our website where some of the content on the page wasn't showing the correct language tags for the content, which meant someone using Google Chrome, using Translate actually gave it mistranslated something to someone which sounded very inappropriate. Like it basically said it said something like "you should die" or something like that. It was like, so we had a report about that. So automatic translation is great to a point. You know?
Well, that's the trouble. You know, I'll tell you an example of this, because obviously being a Brit living in America, we all speak English, but we speak it quite differently. And the one that used to confuse my wife was, you'll understand exactly what I mean straight away, which is if I say to you, "Mind your back," you think, "Move out the way," because somebody's coming behind you with something, you know, they want you to watch your back and be careful of it.
Yeah.
My wife, the first time she heard that, she's like, "What do you mean, mind your back?" Because mind to America means think about your back. And it's a very subtle difference. And the other thing was, I forget something. There was some other phrase that was really straightforward, and she's like, "What do you mean?" And it meant homely. There's a word. If you said, I like my sister's house is very, you know, homely. To you, as a Brit, you would go, "Oh, it's really cozy, it's very comfortable, it's very warm. She has a open fireplace with logs on the fire," and you would immediately understand that that meant comfortable and warm.
Yeah.
In the United States, if you say something or someone is homely, it basically means basic working class broken down.
Oh, right. Okay.
So if you say, "Oh, I like her, she's so down to earth, she's a very homely girl," you basically just describe this person as a plain Jane kind of ugly person. So yeah, Translate, it's great. It'll translate the words. The AI deep learning hopefully will help understand the context of what's being said, but use these things in your app with some caution, because you know, it's not as easy as understanding the words. You've got to understand the context of what's being said, like the word crazy and mad. In British English, you say, "God, he's mad," meaning, you know, it can mean two things. It can mean like he's mad, like he needs to be locked up in an asylum, or it could mean, "Oh, he's mad," like he's a really funny person. Yeah. But if you say in the USA, "Oh, he's mad," it doesn't really mean the same thing at all, and it basically, you know, doesn't mean crazy. It means angry. Crazy is crazy, but mad just means really annoyed about something. So again, it's the same thing. It's a nuance thing. Yeah. Welcome to my horrific world of misunderstandings that have happened over the years. Don't even go down the cookie and crisp and chip route, because that gets really difficult quite quickly. Amazon Key Management Service, KMS, protect data in the cloud and your applications as Amazon's encryption and key management service.
So so you probably don't necessarily need a great deal of interaction with this yourself, but other services that support encryption, like for example Amazon S3, then you have various levels of responsibility for your keys, if you like. You can just say use Amazon's keys, and I trust them. But some people who are super paranoid might want to say, oh, well, I don't want to use their general service keys. I want a key that's generated specific for my account. So I can generate that key, and then I can say, use that to encrypt my data in this bucket. Or you can even on some of these services, you can also use like customer managed keys, as in like things that are actually our own keys that are never uploaded to the cloud at all. But depending on what level you want to work to, the key management service allows you to do those annoying bits of plumbing,
admin. Yes,
yeah.
Plumbing and admin. Yeah. It's funny you said paranoid. That doesn't sound like computer software developers at all. We're not at all. Oh yeah, we are. Yeah, I'm very paranoid. As one of my ex-colleagues used to say, just because you're paranoid, it doesn't mean to say they're not out to get you. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yes.
He's not wrong. And the other one is probably my favorite graphic. I asked Peck Sales for a Amazon Secrets Manager. I said Secrets Manager, and look at the picture it came up with. How awesome is that? And so that is basically kind of in conjunction with the follow-on from what you were talking about, isn't it? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so Secrets Manager is another service that it stores secret bits of information for you. So you can say, hey, here's a password. Please, can you look after this for me? It can also interact with some of the services to do things like automatic, secret rotation, things like that. So, if you've got a company policy that no password should exist for longer than a certain time period, you can use this to automatically rotate out secrets for things like your most secure databases and whatever. This will work in conjunction with KMS as well. Because obviously, again, if you're using Secrets Manager and are super paranoid about it, you probably don't want to necessarily just trust the default encryption.
Yeah. I'm just blocking some names on YouTube that we cannot report on there. Right. So happy days. And by the way, if you do use a username that could be considered offensive in any language, we have to block you. Sorry, but you need to go away and change your username or use an alternative account or something, because we can't do that. Right. And I asked for a picture of tokens. And these are the tokens we got, but really what we're talking about is credentials. So I do have an alternative image, and that is this one, which is a temporary credential for somebody called Richard.
So STS is actually a core part of any Amazon SDK, and that is because if you are interacting with their services on any reasonable level, you need to be able to at times step into a different role to say, I want to behave as this role here, or like this user, and it allows you to. It's the service that takes care of saying, okay, does this person have permissions to become this role? And if so, I'm now going to then issue them some new credentials that are only going to be short-lived credentials, but those credentials can now be used if you want to access us that role, and that is the job of the security token service, and it's under the hood of any good SDK. So.
Yeah, and that's the point I'm making again is the reason we've got that QR code up there is your SDK does all of this kind of stuff, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what it does. And it's a work in progress. You're always adding new things. I know you personally, and I'm involved in some of the things we do internally with you as well. And you are a supremely hardworking developer, and more importantly, this SDK is super polished as well. Really, professional. Every time I say this, you get all embarrassed, like, "Oh, sure."
Yeah,
but it's true. You are one of these people that's a craftsman at what you do, and I really admire that. I mean, there are lots of people out there. Stefan is another guy. You know Stefan as well as I do. Stefan is. I think he would be the first to admit he can be a little bit abrasive when he's annoyed about something, but you know what? That guy, first of all, I get on really well with Stefan. We understand each other. And secondly, that man is a craftsman. Same as several others of our friends that we know as well there. But you are among them. You well deserve your place as a tech partner and MVP, because you're both as well. Yeah. And for those that want to try this out, there's two options. The first option, if you want the pro version, then and I've blanked out your price, but if they want to go to the website, they'll see what price they get for it. It's very cost effective. I mean, less than they would probably pay a developer a day's work as a contractor. FYI, that's the price they're looking at. So they can go to your site and get your SDK, and that's the pro version. Is that right? That they can get.
There's two versions available on the website. There's the standard version and the pro version. So the standard version doesn't have a few items, but they're largely the same. But the pro is just that much better. Comes with source code. Comes with better support terms. And
that's the important thing, because it's not. I mean, it's a with source project when you buy the pro version, not open source, in the sense that it's copyright software. But as with all of these things, if Richard was to get struck down by an Amazon drone strike, let's say their delivery drone messed up and ran him over, you've got the source code. This future proofs you for that. It's quite important to make that definition. There is also, as well, a Embarcadero version with little air quotes. I hate myself when I do this because I immediately hate who I become when I do that, but that's what it is. It's the Embarcadero version. If you've got the enterprise or architect version of RAD Studio for Delphi, or I think C++ Builder it appears in as well. But if you've got the enterprise version of RAD Studio or either of those, then if you go into the Get It package manager, so literally tools Get It package manager, go to the search box that you can see on the screen there, marked as number 2, type in AWS, and it'll narrow down to this SDK, and click on the button that says install, unless it says installed already, in which case, well done, you already did it, and thank you to everybody. But that's how to get to the SDK. So we needed to do this first to explain what some of these services are. People always ask about the replays. You will get the replays. So you can wind back to where we talk about the description. I think we can do that now as well, which is Richard did also say, and we'll go back to that slide with the website again, that if you do decide to get to the pro version, you've got a Christmas special coming up. Is that how I want to say it? Santa?
I thought, seeing as we are talking dedicated about this today, until the end of the year, I have created a promo code, Winter25, and you can get 25% discount off of the SDK.
And in fact,
lovely. There you go, Winter25. Thank you. Yeah.
Winter25. So if they go to appercept.com, put in Winter25. See how quick.
So you need to go through to the checkout and then apply the the discount code.
Checkout number 4, please. Yes, go to the checkout of there. So click on the button that says buy. I think is the easiest way to say it. Click on the buy button, and then it'll ask you for a code. Put that code in. If you're watching this after, what is it, December 31st, you said?
Yeah.
Then the code's not going to work. So sorry, you missed the boat. You should have done it when we broadcast the webinar. Click on like and subscribe down there at the bottom. I keep telling you, and then you get notified of all the good stuff. But Richard very kindly is giving you a discount for that. So winter 25. You can type in winter 50, but it will not work.
No.
So there you go. All right, I'm going to hide that for now. I will put that code up later for anybody that needs it. So let me just go back to my screen bit, because the next slide says demo. And I've already had someone ask about demos and saying, are you going to do a demo? It was in the chat at the moment. So I'm going to stop sharing for now. And we're going to go back to Richard side by side. So what we're going to do, Richard's going to share his screen when he's ready. I'm just going to give him a few moments to blindly click on things and panic. Richard will insist on using a Mac, and I've told him that real programmers use Windows, but apparently not. He says they're superior hardware and all the rest of it, which I personally disagree with, but yeah. So if we screen share, we can do that. Okay. That's exciting. Right, so there is Rad Studio. People in the chat, can you let us know if you can see that okay? If you can't, what I'll do is probably hide Richard and I and put the screen share in full screen. I suppose I could do that anyway, couldn't I?
You could go and stick us as little windows down the bottom.
Like this?
Yeah, because I don't think there's anything important down the corner there, is there?
I just had someone from one of the other Idea companies ask about how we do these webinars. And I really hope they watch this replay, because we've used every feature of the Restream platform, barcodes and everything. It's a great platform. It's the broadcasting platform we use, but it's got some really great features. And Restream, if you're watching, great product. We really like it. Good job. Okay.
So
I'm going to shut up, let you do it. I might even...
so what demo would you like to go for first? What service are you most interested in first?
Well, someone's asking about SNS and saying, would it work for mobile apps? I think we need to explain a little bit about that, because it's actually not that easy to show as a demo quickly.
Yeah, we will aim to do something in the future if people are interested in that. The problem is, and it does simplify your development by using Amazon, because what you need to do, you can't get past the fact that you need to use Google's Firebase cloud messaging or Apple push notification services. What it does let you do is say, okay, now I'm using Amazon SNS, I can push notifications to Amazon SNS and let it take care of communicating with Apple or Firebase.
Right.
And so that does help you out to an extent, but it doesn't get you past the fact that you still need to configure all of those things, although it will be nice and neatly managed on Amazon Web Services for you. It should be smoother than it is. Like, the whole thing, I think, can be streamlined a little bit better than what is currently available. And so I do have in my development pipeline, at some point, I do have some more components coming along that will make that a much easier process as well from the mobile app side. But at the moment, it is still, you can do it, and my SDK will help you with the bits communicating to Amazon. But you still need to actually get the push notifications directly from the services either way. And there's no getting around that.
Yeah, and the reason is, first of all, security, because the platforms don't want you, randomly sending messages to people that appear to be from the government, for example. In the United States, we get what are known as Amber Alerts. In fact, I just had one today whilst we were on air. And it's a push notification that comes down and says some child has been abducted, or they have silver alerts for people like, got dementia issues or something like that who go missing. They have, I forget what the other alert is, but they have different colored alerts for when people go missing. If you could fake those, it would be quite serious, because you could obviously report someone's car as being involved in an Amber Alert because they put the license plate up of the vehicle they're looking for. And of course, members of the public are going to probably go after this person vigilante style. So they do need to make sure, and it could be anything. It could be, message from the president, we're going to war or something.
It's also for resource management on mobile devices, because you're constrained with your network bandwidth and although it's less of an issue these days with 5G connections and things, but it still can be in some areas very, very difficult for network communications. And you've also got battery concerns. So if you've got something that's holding open to get push notifications as fast as possible, if you've got something holding those things open, if every app was doing that, then it would be a problem for people's mobile handsets. The fact that Apple and Google both have these platforms where they're optimizing, so you have to go through their service and it will optimize the delivery of those things onto your handset, means your device is using the best optimizations for battery and network. So you don't want to go outside of those things. You want to use their services. It's just there are hoops to jump through to get there, is what we're saying.
Yeah, and in fact, the webinar I did the other day where I showed MQTT is an example of something that actually would be very heavily consuming battery, because it's got that permanent link. I did it to show how there would be one way of having apps communicate on a network, and it's usually used for Internet of Things devices like this one. That's where you use it, and the notifications that are sent through are not notifications. They tend to be the temperature, or the moisture content in a soil sample, or a door is open, or something like that. So the example I used, and then I couldn't remember the method for showing the notification, but for those that wanted to know, it was present notification, not an obvious thing to say, but you can do, you can simulate that, but to do it properly, then this is the way to do it. So cool stuff. So the answer is yes, there is an example, but it's not easy to demonstrate.
So first of all, I'll quickly show a service here. I'll show Cognito first. This for a lot of people should be like the first thing you want for a mobile application, because you want people to sign in. So your Instagram that you were developing the other week, you've not got to the point where you need to add functionality. But the first thing you really want to do is add the ability for a user to sign in, because you need an identity for that user, right? So Cognito would be the perfect fit for that. And you can. Sorry, are people saying that things are
someone's saying the text was fuzzy, but actually I'm not so sure it is. It could be the internet connection. I think if you try and zoom up, is that going to be a problem for you?
Do you want me to change resolution?
Is it going to be a massive problem for you? I can hide the screen whilst you do that.
It won't. It shouldn't be a problem. Let's see, what should be a better res for
I would say probably 1920 by 1080 or something like that.
Wow, that's
all right. Well, higher if you like. I mean, not what it is at the moment. Put it that way. So.
Right.
There you go. That's better. Yeah. So keep that. Yeah. Good.
Yeah,
cool. Okay. And of course, the IDE is going to be broken now.
Okay. Let me relaunch the IDE, because it probably will be broken. Oh my God! Yep.
Yeah. So talk amongst yourselves, everybody. Oh, and Terry says he has a gigabit fiber. Terry, I have a 2.5 gigabit fiber. Your move.
All right.
But yeah, sorry about that. It probably isn't your connection. It probably is ours. I mean, the connection's fine. It is actually telling me the quality of the connection going out is good. So it could just be the resolution we're broadcasting at. So hopefully that's easier to see.
Is that better?
Yeah, it looks better to me. The actual IDE will be fine once you open the app. So
okay, right. So let's have a look here. So the Cognito demo. So I'm just going to launch it straight away, and I'll just talk us through it. So this is going to grab some credentials from Cognito identity pools. So that's and it's asking for a set of credentials, but we don't have an identity to give to it. So I've configured it to issue a guest user set of credentials, and based on that, I'm accessing resources here. This is actually a HTML document that's being presented here from an S3 bucket, but I can only access it with the credentials that I've been given. And because I've been given one set of credentials, I can see this document here, and it's a guest user access. Now, if I go to sign in, so this is the first component that you're seeing here, which is the Cognito hosted UI component, and I can come in here and I can sign in. It's effectively presenting some web content from Cognito, and this is the user interface that, depending on the options you specify in Cognito, you can specify branding and all those kind of things, and some style customization. You can say
like Facebook login, for example.
You can say I want to add social, like login with Facebook buttons, things like that.
Yeah, or an Embarcadero logo or whatever you chose.
Exactly. So I hit sign in now, and once it signs in, it's now got an identity, and I've handed that to Cognito identity pools, and it's given me back a different set of credentials, which allows me to get access to some authenticated resources.
So let me just recap that for a second. So the first time the user sees this UI that you've got up, because they're not logged in, you are deciding to say, okay, this is not a user I know, so I will show the guest access page. So this would be like the landing page for Facebook, for example, where it says, please log into Facebook. When they click on sign in, then it shows that user interface, which is also hosted on Amazon. Is that right? And you present that down as a web page. They type in their credentials because they're already registered with you or something like that. Again, Facebook's,
Cognito will take care of the onboarding. So if you want to create accounts, you can make it, it will take care of creating accounts for you. And
Very
also
cool.
password management, like I've forgotten my password. It does all of that for you in the hosted user interface.
Right. And then once they successfully sign in, you then get a notification to say, hey, this person is known to us. It's Terry is now pleased with us, by the way. Melvin was very impressed at my calling out of Terry and saying I've got a better fiber internet connection than him. But Terry's a regular. I know, he comes and says. But anyway, looks like we solved the problem. So once you are told you know who they are, they then are presented with another web page, which is only for those people that signed in. This would be the equivalent of you signing into your Facebook page, and it shows you your Facebook profile and your wall and all the other things. Or indeed, the Embarcadero downloads page, where if you're a known customer, it will give you your registered downloads. It could be anything. So that's what is happening here. You get shown one page when it doesn't know you. It takes you to a login, allows you to log in, and then once you're logged in, you can give them a different set of results.
This is a very kind of like noddy example. This is, it's a very noddy example. So it's not. it's not brilliant in that respect. It's not very visual. I had to think of a way to demo this being more visual, but you can. I hope you can understand the concept of this is actually really quite useful. And when I hit sign out, all we're going to do is we're going to effectively throw away the identity that we were just issued, and we're going to ask again. It will ask again for some new credentials, and it reverts back to the guest user access.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
but so that's Cognito for you. I can quickly show.
Are you able to show a little bit of the code there?
This is the dialogue, which is not very visual here because it can't show you the web content here. But this is a component, and if you look on, if you search for Cognito, once you've got my SDK installed, there's a Tcognito hosted UI there. You can drop that on a page, and you fill out a few of the properties here: some client ID, a client secret, the domain, and potentially a couple of other options. But by default, I think there's 3 things you need minimum. But and all we're doing here is when this actually on the event of this, so there's a on login event, and all I'm doing is I'm closing this dialog saying it's okay. But back in the main form where we called it, we have a sign in, sign out button. So we just say if it's signed in, we sign out. If it's signed out, we sign in. And then if I show you, where is it? So sign in. So it creates the authentication form, which has our Cognito hosted UI. And if we get back an MROK, so we know that it was successful, we add to our credentials a login information, which has a provider name that you have to specify, but that's to do with your configuration for identity, for the identity pools. So I'm not showing that value here, but if you read the Amazon documentation, it tells you what to do with that. And the token that came back from that authentication form is added to this set of credentials. And then we ask it to refresh the buckets here. And by doing that, it's now going to use the new, because we've updated the credentials with an identity, it's going to refresh the buckets with the new credentials. And that's how we switch the content. So suddenly one bucket's going to disappear and another bucket's going to appear in the list, and we fetch the index from that from the other bucket, basically.
Clever stuff. Yeah, and I think that I think there's a few little things here, but Terry says when you've used Ian's screen, there's much better perceived resolution. He did point out that he thinks it might be because YouTube is streaming at 720p. We're actually looking into that because we might be able to stream at higher resolutions because I don't know, but I'm not quite sure why it would look fuzzy because I can check what's going out and it looks okay to me. So okay. I don't know. Anyway, so that's interesting. Is this one of your demos on your demos page?
Yes.
Or is it?
So if you go to my GitHub account, GitHub/Apposite.
I can do better than that. I can say go to here, the Apposite samples.
There you go.
I am prepared for you, Richard. I have done my best. I've outdone myself tonight.
So as well, I would say whenever I let me just get it on the screen here. Whenever I create a sample that needs some infrastructure as well, there is there's often a CloudFormation folder. If you see a CloudFormation folder on any of my demos, it should tell you in the README what you need to do. But here there's an identity provider YAML, and you can go and upload that to Amazon's CloudFormation service, and it will give you some options, some values that you can fill out, and it will create the infrastructure you need to run this demo. I normally try as well, just when bearing in mind costs, I normally try and give a summary of how much you should probably expect when running this demo. In this particular example, Cognita has a very generous free tier. I think it's free up to the first 50,000 users or something like that. So there will be some.
But there's hope. There's hope for Serge yet. You know, he can still go ahead and track down Sandra Bullock. And,
yeah. So obviously they changed.
He's never going to look that down. You know that, don't you?
Yeah, they changed the free tier from time to time. So I may be out of date on that, but so do check what the costs are. But when I checked it for this, it was, you would be well inside the free tier.
Yeah, certainly when I was testing out various things, the most expensive service they had, it still was not expensive, and even once I started paying for stuff because I'd breached the free thing, it was like 0.02 cents or something like that. It was really, That said, if you do suddenly get lucky and you've got 1 million users, then just it's worth pointing out we will at some point scale up to the point where you're going to need quite a healthy bank account to pay for AWS services. They're very good at not providing a way of overspending, preventing overspending. You can set budgets and things like that, but
you can, and they will notify you when you're getting close to or going over those things. But yeah, basically they still want you to pay for what you use.
Not really their business model to not make you spend money.
Yeah.
So.
and at the end of the day, if you've got a business where you're using these services in a significant way, then the chances are you're making money off of it. Otherwise, what are you doing in business?
Yeah, what are you doing? You're crazy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. All right. So on to the next.
So what should we go on to next? There's something probably a little bit more simple. Maybe translate. Translate's quite a.
Yeah, that would be a good one. And the other one is Poly and Textract. Both of those are quite good as well.
So I'm just going to jump straight in and run this. And, okay, so detect language automatically. So if I just put in something, it's automatically detected that was French, and it's translated it over to English for me. You can obviously come in here, and there's a big list of different languages you can translate to. The only one I'm fluent in is English, so and this is almost the limit of my French. So apologies that I can't show.
You were born in Jersey. How can you not speak French? I thought that was like the second language there, wasn't it, or something?
Oh, and I believe the laws, the royal courts, I think, operate in French.
So there you go. So you've got no excuse. It'd be like me not being able to speak English.
But anyway.
Moving on.
So, yes. So that's translate. Translate is pretty simple, except for you do need to know what language codes you want to go to and from. So most of the code in this demo, again, this is all in the samples repository. Most of the code here is actually about populating lists of things on the user interface. And then there is, you can see here's the load languages thing, which is populating combo boxes.
So in effect, they could produce their own Google Translate or their own Microsoft Translate app.
Yeah.
And sell that as a service or whatever, and monetize that with their own ads or something, if that's what they wanted to do. So or they could just use it to translate stuff that was coming up, a user typing something into a list box and you want to translate it into another language, it can be done.
So here's the actual code, and I'll break this down a little bit just because this shows the pattern of how we work with the SDK. Well, in fact, let me just bookmark here a second, and then let's go. Let's go to the top. Right. So here we are. So
can you zoom your texting just a little bit,
sure,
like a couple of
I can.
touches?
Let's go as big
There
as
you
you
go.
want.
That's good. That's enough. Yeah.
So all you need to do is add the service to the uses clause that you want to use. So in this case, we want to use translate. So it's aws.translate, and then where we want to call it, there are we create a request here, which is it's an iTranslate text request. So all translate request interfaces start with iTranslate, and then it's the action you want to call translate text, and then it's request or response depending on which you want. And we've already got a client constructed here, and we say client. So we're setting the request up with the source language, the target language, and the text we want to translate. And then we just say to the client, translate the text, here's the request. And then once it comes back successful, we just, if we've got a detected language, an auto-detected language, I set that in our user interface, the detected language code, and then we specify in the translated text memo the translated text. If you want to see where it's constructed in the so we have a client here, which is a property, but if we go to the form create, we should see there all we're doing is we're constructing a client, and all clients, the naming convention again is the same. So we are using a translate client.create, and that is the fundamental pattern used in all the clients.
Yeah, and it's very consistent. That's the thing. The advantage of having one person who's working on the SDK is that you just do it the same every time. I mean, this is what I mean about you're a kind of methodical craftsperson, really, because you go through and the SDK, it makes a lot of sense. If you've used one of your parts of your SDK, the other parts of the SDK actually, as you say, they pretty much follow along the same pattern.
Yeah,
and so do the samples as well, which is good. So once my dog's barking for some reason. I need Amazon dog disappear.
I'll jump us into a slightly. You asked about what SQS is for, and I will show you
I didn't understand it at all.
Example of this. So this is fundamental to distributed cloud computing. So
I'll be back in 2 seconds. I will be here. You carry on talking about it.
Okay. So I've got in this SQS queue poller, there's two projects. There's a poller and a sender. So the poller is going to poll on a queue, and the sender is going to send a message to the queue. So the poller is going to receive the message as soon as it receives it from the queue. And if there's more than it can, if there's more messages than the poller can handle, they're just going to sit in the queue and they'll be processed in turn whenever there is a poller able to deal with that. So if I build these, if I go, I'm just going to build both of these. So project build all projects. Right. So we've done that. And I'm going to, because these are console applications, I'm just going to launch a couple of console applications. Let's just tear that off there. And in fact, let's put that there and that there. I'm going to change into the right folder.
I'm back. Sorry about that.
Oh,
dog was being annoying.
So if I look in the output of this build here, we have the two X's. We've got the sender and the poller. So I'm going to quickly, first of all, we need a queue. So I'm going to let's quickly bring up my AWS console here.
Don't forget, don't you think for one moment I didn't spot you're using Oh My Posh as well? That's
Yes.
Unix guy here. I love that kind of stuff. So
yeah. So here I'm just jumping into the console to create a queue. So I'm just going to create a queue. You can do all this through the SDK, but I just thought I'd show basically how easy it is here. So I'm going to take their example and just call it my queue. There's lots of options you can specify on it. You can read the Amazon documentation till your heart's content about how to deal with these, but the defaults are fine for most cases. Encryption's enabled by default. As you can see, it's using the standard SQS key. But like I say, key management service, you can specify your own key or your customer key there. And really, I'm not going to change anything here. I'm just going to create the queue. And once we've created the queue, that's it. I can just copy the URL for the queue here. So I need that. And I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to start up the Polar. And
make sure you turn this off after your example, won't you?
Yeah, I'm just going to, well, I mean, it's all protected here. So there we go. I'm polling this queue. And it's just going to sit there. So, but you notice it's not firing lots of requests. So the queue poll is designed that it's going to do a long poll. So it's basically, it's just waiting. It's got an open network connection waiting for the queue to send something back. And eventually it will time out and it'll then say, okay, so we're going to start again. And we're just going to wait again. So now if we say we've got a sender and we're just going to say, we're going to name it sender 1 and we're going to send it to the same queue again. And I can do that, and it doesn't show anything there, but you can see now on the Polar it started to spit out messages. It's message 5 from sender 1, message 6 from sender 1, message 7 from sender 1, so on, and it's just going to keep going, receiving those messages.
Right.
And it's as simple as that. If you need to send payloads of information, not huge amounts, just like packets of data between processes distributed around your cloud environment, it's often used to have like a JSON payload, so you can then on the Polar on the processing side, you can decode a bunch of data and then do something with that. I should mention the field report demo that is also available. I don't know if you want to. I don't know if you want to mention that at all. I think you've got the link for the field report demo.
Yeah, I'm not sure where I've done with it, but yes, I know the demo you're talking about.
That is a more comprehensive demo showing interacting between SQS, S3, and SNS, like all combined to make it's quite a complex demo, but it's a workflow effectively showing how to send data around, how to pass messages and so on. So I'm now going to just Control C and quit that sender program, and you can see the messages have now stopped over on the queue Polar there. So I'm going to just quit that, and that's the end of that demo.
So easy stuff really, but it could be sending blocks of anything. It could be blocks of updated data. It could be sales invoices. It could be, something that you want secure, but you don't necessarily want to send it by email or something like that. You want to send it program to program, process to process. It could be that, scanning images at a hospital, for example, x-rays, patient records, anything that is needs to be sent around. Cool. Okay. We've got time for a few more demos. So
okay. So what else would you like? So let's just quickly have a look at Textract. This is a fast demo here. We'll run this straight away, and we'll open up something with text in it. So here's an image that when traveling to the Delphi summit earlier this year, I took a photo here, and we can detect document text here, and it has basically detected all of these bits of text, and you can come here and you can select that there, and it will draw the bounding box around that text for you.
This is one of the coolest things I think it does, is not only does it extract the information, but it gives you the coordinates of the image relative to the size of the image, obviously, where that is. I think this is really mind-blowingly good, because this, to the people watching this, you need to understand what you can do with your app with this, because this is something that's very difficult to do in other ways. In fact, probably almost impossible. But this, the SDK and this service makes it like that, an absolutely simple process.
Yeah.
And almost bulletproof as well, because it gives you the coordinates, and your sample even shows you how to draw the bounding box in Delphi so that you can draw around it. Now imagine if you've got something here where you're trying to highlight something that's wrong on an invoice or scanned document. You know, someone scans a application for housing or something like that. So they scan it with the camera, you get the image through, and you spot an anomaly. So you do a text extract and you go, wait a minute, their name's fake, or they've forgotten to fill something in. You could draw bounding boxes around the bits that are okay, or the other way around. And so
there's the code to do that
information. It's fantastic.
And that is the most complicated bit of code here, but people who are familiar with drawing on canvases in Delphi should know exactly what's going on there.
Well, if not, they've got the code, so they don't need to be familiar. There's your answer. There's a piece of code. I always say this about these kind of things. People do the hard work for me, and then I get to show them in the demos, and it makes me look cool. But actually, it's your kind of hard work that does all this. I don't have to do anything clever.
So there's the code to actually call the service.
And so let me just get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines of code, not including the variables, which are straightforward. 5 lines of code, and it extracts every single piece of text out of that image. And then when you come back with the response, there's more code, obviously, but the fact you're calling it in the first place is just 5 lines of code, and that's really, really easy. And one of those is just an if statement to say, did it work? Yes, it did. Good. Okay.
I'll show you. In the same vein, we'll have a look. We looked at this last week, but we'll quickly have a look at the recognition demo, and we'll use the same image. And the reason I'll point that out, I'll point out a difference here. So let's just grab that same image again, and let's zoom that up. And I'm just going to say detect labels. So what detect labels does, it's not about detecting text. This is about telling me about what things are in the image. And one of the things I would point out here is, there you go, it's pointed out the QR code. Textract won't highlight that QR code. It won't find that for you. It will find all of the text. This finds text.
Objects.
Now, it's not given me the text here, because recognition can give me the text, but it's a different method to call. You have to call detect text on recognition, and it will do effectively a similar job to Textract. Now, Textract is better if you are dealing heavily with the text of documents that you want to analyze. But here, if you're looking for things like barcodes or QR codes within an image, then recognition is more suitable for that kind of thing.
As you can see, Didier says Textract, really astonishing. And I can think of dozens of use cases. And in fact, when we do the follow-up blog post for this, because there will be a follow-up blog post, because there always is when I get time. It won't be till next week now, because I've got 3 to write. But I want to point out some of the use cases for these as well, because I'm the creative guy. That's how I think. I think very visually. I'm good at the user interfaces and stuff like that. and I also come up with use cases. And I think if the people that are watching this video now, if they want to email myself or even Richard, actually, Richard's email is at the Percept thing over there. But email me ian.barker@embarcadero.com, because I would be interested in some ideas that you come up with, because at Embarcadero, and I say this safely because I had a conversation before this, we really believe in the SDK from Percept. It's why we have a partnership with Richard, and why it's available in Get It. There is an Embarcadero version that will allow you to do this. If you've got an enterprise or an architect version of RAD Studio, you can get this SDK. Not everything that Richard offers in the Pro version, so get that from his website. But if you do have an enterprise version of RAD Studio or an architect version, the Uber version of everything, I'm going to stop saying Uber because someone stole that name. But the overarching architect version, you get that in Get It, and you can do these examples and do all the things that you see there. But if you've got a use case or you're using the SDK for something, can you email me and let me know? Because I'd be interested in highlighting some of the uses that people put to these, because I think it really does add an extra dimension to RAD Studio and Delphi. I think it takes us into a realm of doing things that it's actually quite difficult in other languages to do, other programming languages, program systems. They can do it, but Richard has wrapped all this into a nice little SDK, encapsulated in a way which literally 5 lines of code to call that. 5 lines.
I should point out.
What convincing do you need?
This is something that actually I had to point out to Ian the other day, and he was astonished that
I didn't even know this bit.
in tools options, and when you first install the SDK, there's a wizard that pops up, and it walks you through the basics of configuring your AWS SDK. So if you've never used AWS before, it will configure some files on your in your user profile that are common to all Amazon Web Services SDKs. And I give a little editor here. So if you want to come back, so you can have different profiles.
Be careful what you click on.
You can come in here and you can define different profiles, and you can then come and select one, and you can say which one is your default. And what that's doing is that's setting your IDE profile. So if you want different credentials for different applications you're working on, you can set up different profiles for working in different ways. And when you go and run the process from the IDE, the credentials, the Amazon credentials that are going to be used, notice in my client code at the minute, I've not set any credentials for accessing the AWS SDK, because the AWS SDK will resolve credentials for you. And there's lots of ways that credentials can be resolved, including if you're deployed on an Amazon Web Services instance, say on their virtual machine infrastructure, EC2, or whether you're on their Docker infrastructure, ECS, Elastic Container Service, then it will resolve the credentials for you from those instances without having to manually set any credentials at all in your code, which is ideal because you don't want to put credentials into your code if possible, because we all know the dangers of accidentally checking those into your source code repository, and then the nightmare of having to eradicate them from everywhere.
I can't tell you that it used to happen quite a lot with RAD Studio, that people would accidentally flash up credentials. I'm way too cagey for that. I'm very, very careful how to do it. But even I occasionally have shown things. Normally, when I do pre-recorded videos, I go through and blur out confidential information. But sometimes you miss something, and some clever so-and-so, it shows for 100th of a second, and they find that frame and get the information. Oh, you so-and-so. That's the way it is.
So,
I want to emphasize how absolutely well-rounded this SDK is. It's just got absolutely everything.
So I'll show you a quick demo with S3. S3, we all know generally it's a
The buckets, yeah. But
so I've selected a bucket here, my demo bucket, and just to show one of the things it will do for you. It's best practice when uploading files to upload them in multi-parts, because you can upload huge files to S3. So you can upload up to 5 terabytes in a single object, but you can't.
I didn't know it was that big. I knew it was big, but 5 terabytes is ridiculous.
But you can't upload more than 5 gigabyte in a single part.
Right, so you have to block it down into smaller bit chunks.
So you have to block it down. And
can you imagine getting to like 4.99999 terabytes, and it goes.
And this is a massive pain. And the thing is, because things can go wrong, you need a way to be able to deal with all of the errors that can potentially happen there. But if I should give a demo here, I'm going to upload. I've got a video here that I'm just going to upload. That's from the Blender project, for anyone who knows Blender.
Not the kitchen appliance.
This is now uploading multiple parts asynchronously for you. And all the code that knows how to do this is all here, so you're getting live status feedback about the progress of those parts. As you can see, if one of these failed, does that mean the whole thing is bad? Well, the SDK also handles, within a retry policy, if it's a retryable error, it will retry the request again. So
it's a great demo, really great demo.
So you can configure, and that means your uploads are then more resilient, because if one of these chunks fails, you've only got to retry that chunk. So it's much lighter than trying to upload hundreds of megabytes or gigabytes and then getting halfway through and finding, I should really.
And just to emphasize again that the demos or the samples are up there in the top right hand corner for people that need it, because this demo is one of the demos. Is that right? One of the samples.
This is in that GitHub repo. Yeah. You can go and look at how it's done. And
I mean, just as an example of how to do multi-threading, it's great as well. It's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, that in itself can be a dark art, and it's really quite simple. But it has to be done carefully, because
it's really quite simple. What is up with you people? I found. Oh yeah, it's simple for someone like you, dude. I keep telling you, you're a master craftsman when it comes to this. So.
Well, I just use in this demo. I'm just using T-Task Run, which is pretty straightforward to use. But because we're updating the user interface in the status feedback, it's just important to note that we use the T-thread queue to queue it back onto the main thread, because we're about to update the user interface.
So I love it. I think it's a great demo. We've probably got time for one more. Is there one you?
Okay, shall we show something which shows lots of things together? This one actually, I did this for the Amsterdam Delphi Summit, and
which is happening again next year.
Excellent. I
keep saying Richard will be there. I will make sure it happens. He's going to be there showing this stuff off. So come along and try it out.
Yeah, if you want to come and ask me lots of questions about how to do things with it, or the Amazon Web Services,
I'll be there as well. And in fact, anybody in Delphi world will be at the Delphi Summit. Don't worry, you'll hear more about it. If you're not sure where it is, we'll make sure you hear of it. But next year is the 30th birthday of Delphi, and it's going to be probably the biggest summit that's happened in Europe for many years. That's the plan. Whether that happens is down to you guys watching.
Excellent.
But Richard will be there. I'll be there. Jim McKeith will be there. quite a few people. Hopefully, Ray Konopka and people like that will be going as well. But I imagine they will be. We'll make that happen.
So that image that we looked at earlier in Textract, where we analysed the text out, that was from a rotating display in Schiphol Airport, and it was going through all of the different languages. So I took some photos while I was there to maybe use as to help me out as a demo. So let's have a look here. I do not know any of the words on this page. But
feedback.
Here. Sorry?
Feedback's on there. I recognise that one.
Well, that's reasonable. But
and taxi, yes.
But yeah. So what does any of this mean? So if I click on this text here,
trip to Amsterdam city centre.
There we go. So it's taken the coordinates from me clicking on the image. It's found the text using Textract at that coordinate. It's used the Amazon translate to translate it into the language I have selected up here, which is by default English, and it's then read that out using Amazon Polly.
So just to recap, it's got the image, grabbed the text, translated it into English, and then speaks it out loud in the language of your choice. This is like black magic, dark arts kind of stuff. and I mean, seriously, it is kind of quite amazing. I'm sure there are people out there going, oh, it's not that complicated. Well, you know what? It may be not to you if you're familiar with that and you think, oh, it's not that difficult. But I can tell you it's not that easy to do. And there are applications or use cases for this kind of technology. Email me. I said earlier on, please, if you've got some use cases that you can think of for this, or you're already using Richard's SDK, please email me or contact Richard. And I'll put his QR code back up in the corner again so that you can scan it if you want to. And let us know what you're using it for, because I'd be very interested, because this kind of stuff is this is where Delphi really excels, is doing clever stuff like this, but being rock solid when it does it as well. Delphi apps out there are stupidly reliable, and you can't say that. And I'm not knocking any one technology, but Python apps can do this kind of thing as well. But you can go and edit the Python script like that, and all of a sudden it breaks. Or they upgrade the Python runtime or do something else.
So
not true with Delphi. So it'll keep running forever.
There's I've tried to break this demo down as well to make it really simple, because it does. You think, oh well, this must be really complicated because it's like multiple services all in one. So it has. So I broke it down into the three components that we're using, and it's all brought together onto this main form here. But if you want to focus on one thing, there's a data modules text extraction, data modules translation, and data modules text to speech. And inside each of those is just enough code to do the functions required for this application. So you can go and inspect this from the samples repo and work out how it's doing it. It's really not rocket science. This is it's all there. If anyone wants anything to do with more service, more examples, more samples, if there are particular features you'd like samples, I am aware of the SNS one that keeps getting requested. I will do something in that area. But yeah, I'm always interested, as Ian. I'm always interested to hear how people are using it, maybe, and also how people are maybe finding things difficult. If I can help improve things, make things better, solve those problems for everybody, then I'd love to help out there.
Didier is going off piste now with his suggestions. Translate into English and then get it to tell you the text in Spanish.
Yeah,
you do that? Well, okay, how is possible? It could do that, is the answer, but I don't think we need to.
I mean, I can do that right now if you want.
Well, there you go, Didier. We've called you out on your little
So here's the English version. Let's see if we can find Spanish. Have we got Spanish in my list here? I can't remember if I put. Well, yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So Spain Spanish. Yep. Okay. So what should we travel to Amsterdam city centre?
Yeah.
Viaje al centro de Ámsterdam.
Does that track for you? I hope so.
There you go. See, Didier, thank you for your suggestion. I think we can say we've got it. David I also. Hello, David. Good to see you around. I'm sure if you're a long-term Delphi person, you know who David I is. He started all this DevRel stuff way long ago. He says, hi, cheers to Richard. It's outstanding to see the AWS libraries you continue to build. The real power of Delphi and C++ Builder is to have components to access AWS and the other cloud systems. Actually, this is, at the moment, there is more SDK than components. And the reason it's actually just easier to do it that way. But Richard is working on some more components. There are some components, but some more just to enable things to be more Delphi-like, so more component based. But either way, it's easy stuff. And now we're supposed to feel sorry for David I, especially for a 73 years young semi-retired software engineer. David, if you lost your mental faculties by 75%, you'd still be 400% better than everybody else on the planet when it comes to software development.
Yeah,
thank
you,
David.
I kind of, it was a milestone when I first heard you were using my SDK. I was like, I've made it. If David
David often comes along to these webinars, and I really appreciate it. And he's a great guy, very generous with his time. Big fan. I mean, if you know David on LinkedIn, you'll see him still to this day, despite being semi-retired. He still posts a lot of tech stuff, and I would probably say, you know, every other article I'm like, oh, that's good, and then I click on save because it's something I've either not spotted or something that actually piques my interest. So even to this day, he's still fine. I hope once I'm not that much younger than him, but once I get to his age, I hope I'm still firing all cylinders in the same way.
I mean, this is a bit off piece now, but just as a question to you, Ian, and anyone really who's making a comment, I'm also thinking about maybe I've not really thought that hard about doing this, but I have a collection of live templates that I can lean upon, and you know, maybe I should include these in the SDK at some point. But you know, which is alongside, it's alternative for people who like code versus components. It would be, so if I wanted like an SQS queue poller, I have a thing that I can say SQS SQS P, is it? There we go. So there's SQS a queue poller for me. I don't know whether you like that style of working.
And David pointed out, he said when he installed it, he only saw one component. Actually, there's been some work done on it quite recently, and there are more components on the way. So
yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, so there's technically two components because they're visual components. So it's for FireMonkey and for VCL. So you can use it on any platform. But I have in development like an array of more components. So there will be more components, but you know, things like. But I'm thinking as well for people who do like to get into you know, if they're doing TDD and they maybe don't lean on components so much, there's things like, so I've got templates for like S3 upload file background, and that gives me is that the wrong one? Yeah, oh no, that's the right one. Yeah, it's doing a task run, and it's calling the file uploader, and it's given me all of the things I need to fill out.
Yeah.
So
he downloaded all your demos as well. So David I is definitely a fan.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, it's great stuff. I can't say enough good things about your library. You know, I'm going to turn your screen off now because I think we've covered all those. Just one second. and back to us in our full Technicolor glory. Let me just pull you up here. So this is down here. This is Richard. Oh, over that way. Oh, I can't quite. Look in the corner, and that's Richard's company, Apicet. And if you're not familiar with the software that you saw us using, the IDE that we're using, that is Rad Studio, and he's actually using Delphi. So Rad Studio with Delphi, if you want to try it out, if you're not using it already, go to that QR code or just go to embarcadero.com and then click on the products link. We do some free versions called the Community Edition, and there are also some trial versions, so you can download a trial as well. The components will work with the trial, do they? I'm not sure. I can't remember. But really, what you need to do is have the enterprise version. You'll get the community edition, and then they can always go and get the professional version from you direct. And I don't mind either way because I want you to succeed either way. I think that I hear what David I is saying about components, and I completely get that because that is really what Delphi is all about. But if you look at the SDK examples, there's like a few lines of code, and it's just an SDK because that's kind of how Amazon works. Really, is almost like it lends itself more to an SDK. But there are opportunities for properties and events. I get that. That we could look at, and it's something that we've mentioned before. So we're going to go through and as David says, a combination of components and SDK library is the best of both worlds. Well, yeah, it's going to happen, David.
There are more services in the pipeline. There are components in the pipeline. There's lots coming. So stay tuned. If you even if you're already using the Embarcadero edition or one of my editions, if you go onto my website and register your interest, I will email you whenever there's new things released. So I don't like spam, so I'm not going to fill people's inboxes every day with with nonsense. But anytime I do something that's relevant to my products that hopefully you'll like, then I'll send you out an email.
So you see who's watching as well. We're both saying, hello, Conrad. We both know Conrad, a good friend of ours, MVP from the UK, and he's in Amersham as well, which I have a few connections with, But Conrad, another guy who's a very, very smart coder as well. In the new year, we're going to, I haven't talked to him about this yet, but I'm sure he'll be up for it. He's got some really great stuff. His Semper templates are really great, and I'm going to show those in the new year in a webinar as well. So just so you know, Conrad, I haven't forgotten about you. Sakis Gumenidis, Sakis, I'm going to call you Sakis, says the webinars are getting better and better, thanks. Well, it's mostly if I stop talking, they get a lot better because Richard does all the stuff. But, we do get a lot of feedback about these webinars, and people seem to enjoy them. And a lot of people said they like the fact that they're not just like slideshow presentations. And that's a deliberate thing. I want us to be more of a community, and I want people to be able to chat to us, and I want me to make mistakes and guests to be able to freely talk about what they want. And it's not going to be 100% polished because I don't think that's what it should be. It shouldn't be me going, here's slide number 2, and then you get these people that just read the text on the slides. It's a complete misfire of use of people's time. But this kind of presentation where someone with a great library and who knows what he's talking about and understands it, is great to get these things going. Francis Moore has been on Talk TV and has not yet had a chance to bring up Richard and Apicet come Embarcadero. He means, I know what he means by that, /Embarcadero as yet, but it's on my agenda. We'll update. Well, thank you, Francis. I know what he does. He does some work with the NHS actually in England. A little bit of he's I think I can't remember whether he said he's semi-retired or retired, and it's more of a kind of hobby thing. But it's one of these projects for the greater good. So I've been in touch with him about that, and we help him out a little bit.
He works for the NHS. I've done all of it.
No, he doesn't work for it. He has some association with it.
Oh, okay.
And he's creating an app that is kind of intended to help. I don't want to discuss too much because it's up to him to talk about that. But yeah, it's interesting stuff. Yeah, we'll talk about it off camera, shall I? Okay. All right. Well, look, Richard, thanks once again. I really appreciate you coming in. We have got our holiday special. If you can drop past for 10 minutes next Friday, the 20th, if you've got time. Might not have. I know you've got a young child, and generally that means that this time of year you're probably super busy. And if you're anything like me, you've left all the shopping to the last minute. But if you can drop past for 10 minutes, we're going to have some people come in and say happy holidays, because that will be the last webinar before the holidays. A casual thing. We're probably going to talk about stuff. Jim McKeith will be here. And maybe get a few other people. I might even persuade David if he's around and interested in saying hi, and a few others as well. But just a kind of holiday special before the holidays begin for most. I did it again. I hate myself. And Tuesday's webinar, which is coming up, stuff you didn't know, and it's going to be some tips and tricks and point you in the direction of a few cool things that have dredged up in the last couple of months whilst I've been preparing for this webinar. So okay, well, thanks a lot, Richard.
Don't forget your early Christmas gift from Apposite, winter.
Yeah, let me just put that up before we go. If you go to Richard's website, and in fact I'm going to put the QR code up so they can go to it up there, and you then go there and you actually click on purchase to get the pro version. Type in winter 25, which is Richard, you can point down like that, it's below you. There you go. Type in winter 25. See, you're a pro now, and that will give you a discount on the package, the full pro version. It's worth it, to be honest. At the price it is priced at the moment, it's absolutely worth it anyway. And I'm not just saying that. You've seen what it can do. It's mind bending, really. You can make your code look like it's engineered by a team of rocket scientists who knew what they were doing. So, and if it makes me look good when I do demos with it, so I'm sure it'll make anybody else look even better. So, because I'm awful at it, but good stuff. All right. Well, thanks a lot, everybody. Richard, I will turn your view off.
Thank you.
Say goodbye, but thanks once again.
Thanks all.
You're always a great guest. Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, that is almost the last bit. Like I said before, let me see if I can point to it, because I've moved the QR code, but scan that and go to apposite.com. And then once you're there, if you use that code, see, I can point to it after all. Use that code, type it in for winter 25 will get your discount. What product did we show? Well, it's Rad Studio. I hope you already use it. If you don't already use it, then you really should. You can get that by going into there and do the stuff we do. It's a great system. I'm back again in Tuesday if you're watching this live, and we'll do a little bit of a different webinar talking about some various tips and tricks and stuff you might not have heard of, some very interesting projects I want to bring up that do some cool things. Might talk about a thing called Horse and Spring 4D and Mormot as well, which is another project. And then on the Friday, which is the Friday before the Christmas holidays in the US and UK, or holidays in other countries, and maybe just a regular day if you're not celebrating Christmas, then Friday, we're going to get a few people in, probably Richard and a few others, definitely Jim McKeith, he's already said yes, and just have a chat about Delphi and development, and we'll kind of do an AMA, Ask Me Anything, and maybe just generally talk about things that we noticed in general about, things that are happening. Who would expect, Helio said, who would expect such nice presentation on Friday the 13th? It is Friday the 13th. Oh, didn't know that. My daughter was born on a Friday the 13th, so actually I consider it lucky for me, but there you go. Didier says, thank you. Maxi Donkey, hello there. Good to hear from you again. He said thank you as well. Hey, it's all for the benefit of the community. I mean that. Object Pascal in general and Delphi and C++ Builder specifically. Thanks, guys. You'll be emailing some naive questions. Please do. There's absolutely no problem with that. If you want to email me about this or any other subject to do with Rad Studio, Delphi, or C++ Builder, that's my email address. I don't mind if you're angry and you want to vent. That's fine. I'd rather know when you're not happy just as much as when you are happy, because if you are unhappy about something, don't just shout at the walls and be unhappy about it. Email me, because I may be able to at least come up with some answers, or at least show you the perspective behind it. I really don't believe that you could complain about, if there was something you didn't like on Microsoft Windows, I think it would be very difficult for you to talk to the people that actually can influence decision-making processes. Not 100% true. There are some people out there. Scott Hanselman, for example, is a very good representative of the company. But Embarcadero goes out of its way to make sure all of us, the program managers, myself, even the general manager, you know our email address, you know our name, and you know our faces. And if you're not happy, don't sit in silence. Tell us and let us know. But also, if there's something you like and you also thought was good, if you like the webinars, or there's a particular guest you thought did well, like Richard, email me and let me know, and I'll pass on the good news to them, because these people, a lot of the time, they take part in these webinars. Obviously, there's a benefit to Richard today, but sometimes they're not. They're just doing it for the sake of the community in general, and they put a lot of effort into it. Putting some of these demos on, it's a lot of work. It can be really, really tricky to put on a good presentation. David I knows that better than anybody else, because he's the guy. He invented this technology, the developer relations methodology, and I just do my own thing on top of it. But anyway, thanks a lot, everybody. We will see you again on Tuesday. If you're watching on the replay, and particularly if you're watching on YouTube or LinkedIn, click on the like and subscribe button. I won't know who you are. Nobody will. But you will get a ping from YouTube or LinkedIn to say, we've gone live. If you do that, you won't miss what we're saying. It doesn't matter if you didn't see an email, it went to the spam bucket or something like that. You will be able to get notified so that you can see these webinars, because I want you to see what's going on. I want you to see the information. Even if you use the CE version, the community edition that isn't paid for, or even if you don't even code in Rad Studio, or you haven't upgraded for years and you're using Delphi 7, don't do that, or Delphi 10 or something like that. It's fine. Just, I want to get the information out there so that you know about it. And if you're not a user, go to that site, the Rad Studio site. There, move the QR code, confuse myself. Go to the Rad Studio site, download the trial, or download the community edition if you qualify. Try it out. I think it's the best way to write programs. And I'm not just saying that because I work for Embarcadero. I'm saying it because I've always believed in that. I've been a software developer using Delphi since the very first day it was released. I mean, the first day it was released. And now I get to do the job where I get to talk about it. So it's good. Anyway, that's enough from me. Thanks very much.